Welcome to another episode of the Low Point Podcast, where we use the 5 pillars of better golf to help golfers unlock the next level of their game. I'm Ryan, here with my co-host Nick, and we understand that every good swing and every golfer's journey has a low point. Let's jump in.
How do you get ramped up, I guess, for the season that's going to kick off here soon, right? Like, Masters is the official start of the golf season, so would love to hear about your mindset just going in, right? Because I'm assuming if it's beautiful in Augusta, Georgia, it's not that bad where you are. So I'm sure you could get up. Yeah.
You know, this is kind of a fun place to start, actually. Like, the challenge for me right now in getting out isn't just time. It's also, now that it's nice, what are the other nice things that I need to do while it's nice outside? Like, I have spent a lot of time doing yard work in the last couple weekends, and I think it's partially because we moved into this place, and this is a rental house, and it was like the prior renters didn't do a ton of upkeep with the yard, and then we moved in, and then I am not used to North Carolina landscaping and the southern grass
You're
and
getting
stuff.
very,
So I had to
you're getting
figure
very
it out.
familiar with the grass types of North Carolina now. So that's part of the preparation for your golf
It's
game,
part of
right?
it.
Yeah.
It's part of it. Yeah, and I think it was funny last year. I learned some things about taking care of the outside, but I didn't do enough. And this year, it's like looking around at the neighbors, and I'm like, oh, our house doesn't look great from a curb appeal standpoint. I got to get out there and I got to fix some things in the spring while I have the time.
I would love
so
for
I've
you
been-
to take. I would love for you to take on the project of trying to create some sort of practice facility in your real grass back here, because I don't have any grass out here.
It seriously crossed my mind at one point of like, how could I get as close as possible could I have my own patch of like driving range grass so that I could practice
You could hit
off
into
of
a
grass?
net.
Yeah. Could I do something like that? I think it would be really cool. I don't think I have the right place for it in this yard, but there's a yard where that would be a thing.
It exists somewhere. Yeah,
it exists. It exists. It would be pretty cool. But yeah, I've been spending my time. I just knew this weekend I had to get out there and do some stuff in the yard rather than get out and play golf, which is it is what it is. But as we talked about before, I'm not trying to rush things. I definitely want to get out. Like, I'm itching. I'm gonna try and make it happen next weekend, I think.
Right.
It's also raining tomorrow. Today's Saturday, so it's raining Sunday. So I knew I basically had half the time this weekend to do yard work and play golf. So it was like I could only do one rather than both.
Why are we both playing golf when the Masters is on? I feel like we should be in front of our TVs. Although I'm probably going to watch Thursday, Friday, and it's going to make me really want to go play golf. So maybe it's a good thing we're getting golf on the calendar for the Masters weekend.
I think that's part of it. I also think that in general, as a rule of thumb, if you can go be active and play sports versus watch other people be active and play sports, like, that's probably a better rule of thumb. Even if it is the Masters, maybe not on Sunday. Maybe I'm not going to go play golf on Sunday afternoon, but
I think I might be playing. Actually, I think I am set up to play Sunday. Whoops. I'll have to check on that. Anyways, I'm happy to get out there. I mean, like, I think my tee time is around 10. So if I might finish just as the Masters is finishing, which would be fun to watch for the last hour or so in the clubhouse. That would be kind of nice.
It'd be cool. Yeah. It's nice to watch events
in the
like
element
that with other golfers. Yeah. That'd be cool. Everybody's having a beer or two and just enjoying it, and you can see who's rooting for who. That might be a lot of fun. It sounds like a good time.
Well, I want to talk about the Masters later, but I want to talk first about this past week since we last recorded.
I want to hear more about your round this week.
Yeah, well, before I get to the round, I also had some pretty good practice sessions. But where I'm at with my practice game is, so the facility I use that's closest to my house uses only mats, and I've been trying to figure out ways to improve. So let me take a step back. I have read and heard a lot of critiques about practicing off mats, that there's a lot of forgiveness, there's a lot of bounce effectively in these mats, that you can hit shots 2-3 inches fat and you won't even notice. And I've used some methods of, like, I've explained the towel drill that I've used before. I think that's a better way to get immediate response from the mats while still using a mat, but there's still nothing quite like getting the turf interaction. And out here in Southern California, when, you know, you're dealing with droughts and stuff like that, like, hitting off of grass is harder to come by. Where I play at Rustic, they do occasionally put the range out on the grass, and it would be 3 times as far to get there versus my practice, you know, the practice facility I typically go to. But I feel like I'm at a point in my game now, especially as we head into the season in earnest. Like, maybe I need to make that special effort to, like, go find grass to hit off of as opposed to just mats. Because I'll touch on this a little bit in my round, but one of the things I've really been working on in my practice are my pitch shots, sort of like 100 yards and in. So more controlled wedge shots, you know, and pitch shots. And I had felt really, really good, and not to bury the lead or anything like that with my round, but there were 1 or 2 occasions in my round where I had that sort of 50 to 60 yard pitch shot, one of which was on one sort of going over that barranca that protects the green. And so perfect opportunity to deploy what I've used, and, you know, it just didn't really work out. But the round itself went pretty well. I did feel like a lot of the stuff I was working on the range from a ball striking perspective really did materialize. So a lot of the shots that were not so great ended up being not so terrible on the outcome. And I think that's really what I'm trying to do, is just tighten the margins. I think I told you after I was reflecting on the round that I wasn't particularly proud of any shot I hit that day. I think there was maybe 1 putt I was pretty happy about, but besides that, I wasn't particularly thrilled about any of my shots, but I still shot an 87. So, like, to feel like you cannot have your stuff and still break 90 is a massive improvement for me, especially over last year, and gives me a lot of hope going into this year, that as we get in deeper into the season and I start to feel, you know, closer to my game, and I start to actually get, you know, have a few shots around that I'm actually proud of, maybe I can start hitting those low 80 numbers that, you know, are required for me to get down to the handicap level I want to get down to. So that's sort of an overview. I mean, I'm happy to spend, if you have any questions particularly about my round, I'm happy to answer, but, or we could do I could do a summarized play-by-play for you if you want, or whatever you want.
I think first, just a quick comment on your trying to get to a grass range versus a mat range if you really work on your swing. I think that's a great idea. I did something similar. It wasn't as big of a difference in drive time for me, but when I was in San Diego and playing at Torrey, like, Torrey Pines has mats. Like, that's just what they do, right? It's still a city course. They're trying to reduce costs, make the course as nice as it is, and reduce costs where they don't need to. And they, you know, have mats, which is almost everywhere in Southern California since, like, the major drought in, like, the mid 2000s or whatever. But I would go out of my way and I'd go to the Del Mar driving range, which is owned by the folks who I think it's the same turf people that work on the racetrack. So it's not even like golf specific turf. Do they keep the driving range nice enough and they know what they're doing? And I would go over there when I was really working on my swing, when I was really trying to get down as low as I could. And it made a huge difference, I think, in terms of being able to just take your swing to the course, right? It's hard enough to go from the range to the course. It's another thing to go from the range with mats to the course. So I think if you can make the time, like, probably not every session, but you know, every other or every 3, you know, it's more important to get out there than it is to get out there on grass. But if you can work it in, I think it's well worth it.
I think particularly for those short game shots, like, I've been really feeling with my wedges a lack of connection with the ball striking. I feel a lot more connected throughout the swing on an iron shot than I do a wedge shot right now, and I just don't necessarily trust the turf interaction that I have with my wedges. And so I think a lot of that is practicing a lot of wedges on the mats, and then I'm getting out onto the range, and of course the lie isn't going to be perfect, and it's not going to be, you know, sitting up. Effectively, that's what a mat tries to replicate, is like a perfect lie every single time. And, you know, the ball might be a little bit below my feet, above my feet. I might be slightly downhill, slightly uphill. So I just don't, I think in the back of my mind, I don't necessarily trust the practice I've put into that shot. And I think particularly for wedges, I got to definitely get out to the grass. But I would say like the driving was definitely way better. It could still improve. It was like, 'cause I know that's something you've always like harped on me to work on. My best drives of the day were at the beginning of the round, and it definitely petered off towards the tail end of the round.
Were you just getting tired, or what happened?
Some element of that. I think I was trying to force it because I had lost 2 balls, both on one on the back, one on the front. And I should have mentioned, by the way, we had a back 9 start at this round, so I actually prefer that at Rustic because I find the back to be harder, and I feel like
You do that a lot.
Hmm?
Yeah, you do that a lot. I feel like you get the back 9 start at
I think
Rustic.
it's only the second or third time I've done that, but
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
maybe I'm just
yeah.
maybe we've just talked
We've
about it
talked
every
about
time.
it. No, we talk about why the 9 should be switched, and like I think I have more. I feel like I have more. My game is more together at the beginning of the round because I have less mental stuff going on. I'm playing less for a score or whatever it may be. I feel like more free. So I actually like taking on those couple tough holes in the first half of the round. I think after losing my ball a couple times, I was starting to just maybe force the driver a little bit. I mean, I still had some decent drives on the back. So on 10, it was very similar to my drive on 1. And then I had a flare out where I didn't lose the ball, but I had a flare out to the right on 11, which is hole 2. And then the third hole, which is the drivable par 4, I drove the green on that. So I actually did have some pretty good drives. Maybe I'm focusing a little bit on the like 7 and 9, holes 7 and 9, which would have been 16 and 18 for me. I just didn't hit the ball very well with the driver.
So I'm curious because you said it here, and you also said it in the text about having shots that you're particularly proud of. Like,
Yeah.
I found that phrasing kind of curious. Like, why is that the phrasing you're using here? Why is being proud of shots an important element in terms of how you frame up your round?
I feel like it helps me know where I'm at in my game. Like if I feel like, I don't know, maybe this isn't as much of an issue for you anymore, but there's a lot of stuff that I feel like I work on the range and then or a practice facility, and then I take it out onto the course and it doesn't translate. So when I'm talking about proud, I feel like it's really a closer representation of where I feel like my practice is versus my actual playing. And so, I had a couple of worm burners with the irons. I had, I mentioned my wedges, I felt came up short a lot. Didn't really have my distances in. And I think what's really happening with my wedges, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but like I'm getting really flippy with my wedges. I've really noticed that. So I've been working on a couple of drills to really like hold off the finish and then like delay the release of the club through impact. So I've been working on that. So it's been really helpful actually when I'm on the practice facility, but then I got to actually like implement it more on the course. And then it's really just like taking what I've learned from my practice and implementing it into my game and feeling like that's where my game should be. Like I know I can hit a 7-iron well. So when I hit a worm burner, I'm like not particularly proud of that shot, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
I do want to say, before I say anything else, that I think worm burner is an underutilized word in the golf world. I know you're translating that over from baseball. I think it needs to be used more often in the golf world. So yeah, thanks for bringing that one into this.
In high school, I played with my friend who is German. He like moved to Toronto from Germany, and I would play golf a lot with him, and he would say "Wumbana" all the time. And so I would, and now I always think about that every time I hit that shot because he would always say that.
Oh man, that's so good. Well, I'll practice my German accent for you for the next time we're together.
Yeah,
that's good. I think it does make sense to me and what you're saying about the translating of the practice to the course. Do you feel like, I know one thing a lot of people try to do is put some pressure into the practice so that when you're on the course and you're in those situations, especially with the wedges, right, where it's so fine and it's just such a finesse move that when you feel any sort of nerves or when your mental state is different, it can just work its way into your swing differently. Like, have you looked at or thought about implementing more? Are you already kind of implementing some sort of game or practice or in your practice or any sort of challenge?
I think I should probably be doing that more. Like, I think once I work through in my practice session, after I work through a feel or a move that I really want to ingrain into my swing, I move to sort of this scorecard of hitting 10 shots that I've been working on in a row and seeing how many of them have the result that I'm looking for. And I'm trying to move that ratio up. So maybe as I'm working on a particular move, it's like 3 out of 10 have the desired result. Then it's 5 out of 10, then it's 7 out of 10. But that's, you still have a leeway because it's not going to be 10 out of 10 unless you're really putting the pressure yourself and you're like, no, you got to hit the next 10 shots perfectly. I think putting a game together is helpful. The one worry I have with that is the same way if I'm playing that game. So a lot of people will imagine a hole that from their favorite course that they'll play on the range. So they'll take a driver, then they'll take a 7-iron, then they'll take a wedge or whatever it may be, right? And if you have a good shot on the range, it's still one of one. Like, I don't know that that's necessarily going to translate to it being a one of one on the golf course, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like if I can replicate a motion or a result on a range, that's going to have more of an impact out there because I just feel in the back of my head like it's reliable. Like, this is a shot I know I can hit 9 out of 10 times. Right. And you hear golfers talk about that, right? Or versus a shot that I haven't practiced, so I'm probably going to be only hit it 2 out of 10 times. And so when I'm making decision making on the course, I think that factors in too.
And that makes sense. I think that I think what you're saying about the 9 out of 10 times or 2 out of 10 times, knowing what those actually are so that when you're on the course, you are making the right decisions. I think that's important, right? I think just because you worked on something doesn't mean that it's going to show up. And sometimes even knowing for yourself, hey, if I get 6 out of 10 on this new move I'm working on and this was my goal and that's what I'm doing on the range, that's usually my litmus test of whether or not I'm capable of taking it to the course. I think those types of insights are interesting. For a while, as I was working on my swing, and even beyond that, I think I've tried this a few different times over the years. There was even an app at one point that I had tried using that was pretty good for it, where you would have sort of these types of shots you were going to hit, and you'd keep track every time you went to the range. Hey, I'm hitting, a right to left, I guess in this case, for me, it's a draw because I'm a right-handed golfer, but put out the alignment stick a few yards out and you need to start it right of that and end it left of that or something like that. And how many times can you do that out of 10 and then give yourself increments of how far it's supposed to draw? And if you say it doesn't count if you overdraw it, for example. I think those types of things were always really helpful because it's for me, because it showed me, hey, I can do this. I did it 6 times out of 10 last time.
Yeah.
If I can do it 7 times out of 10, if I get the first 5, I'm like, oh man, I only need 2 more in this next 5. But it puts the pressure on me to actually execute.
Yeah, so that's
that's
exactly what I'm saying. So I think maybe I could be more measured in terms of tracking it and and remembering which shots were where. And I'm probably I'm more focused on eliminating a 2-way miss right now. So I'm whether I can hit a draw or hit fade, I think is probably in the next grade of where I'm trying to get to with my golf game. I feel like I can hit those, maybe not on as command as I want to, or if I don't know if it's going to draw 5 yards or 10 yards, right? I don't have that level of precision, but I think taking that more of what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a statistical approach, but more of a repetitive motion approach, and being able to feel that there's consistency based on the fact that you've, when you practice this, a couple of days ago, you were able to do this 7 out of 10 times. So when you step up to that shot, mentally, you're I know I can do this. There's a very good chance that if I do what I know I can do or did on the range, I can replicate it here on the course. Particularly, this is really helpful. What was really helpful actually on par 3 shots. So I think we've talked about this last season, but par 3s really plagued me. I was 2 over on the 5 par 3s today. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I doubled our favorite 3-tier one, but everything else I parred. So I think that has really helped me on par 3s. And if you're trying to get from a 15 to anything close to a 10, we've talked about this and maybe we disagree a little bit, but I think you got to really focus on par 3s because it's not like I wouldn't say it's like a scoring hole, but what I would say is it's the most similar to a situation where you're practicing to what you practice on a range with your iron shots. Like, so speaking, like, assuming that these par threes are like, iron shots for you, you're playing from tees where you're hitting an iron, not a wood into a par three. Chances are is like the way you were practicing with like a fairly even lie, like with an intended target out on the range, like that's basically what a par three is, right? So
Right. Right.
I think for me, I'm really focused on not necessarily like trying to birdie a par three. That's not really my objective, but not blowing up a par three. Like I feel like
Yeah,
those are
I think
really
that's the
painful.
goal on
Yeah,
par threes.
yeah,
Yeah, it's just like double bogeys on par threes
tough.
are
Yeah,
unfortunate. Yeah, they're hard to take. Yeah, I honestly, if I go through a round and I bogey all 4 par threes, like I don't love it, but
yeah. It's not gonna
I'm
blow up.
fine.
It's not gonna blow up your round. Double
I'm
bogeys and
fine
par
with
threes
it.
are really tough because like
Yeah,
you should be putting after 1 or 2 strokes, realistically.
you should be putting after 2 strokes, like no matter what on a par
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
And if you are not doing that routinely, I think you need to think about what you're actually trying to do from the tee because you're putting yourself in bad positions.
Yeah.
If you get stuck. So the hole you were talking about with the 3 tiers, that is 15 at Rustic Canyon, and that one's also surrounded by bunkers, right?
Yep.
And it's really it's got a pretty big fall off from the front, but it's all grass. It's all fairway essentially, right?
Yep.
So to me, I've always approached that hole as like stay out of the bunkers at all costs because it's so hard to get out of those bunkers and keep it on the green on the right tier that I would much rather be short of the green
Oh,
and then
totally.
like chip up, right?
Yeah.
And so like I think making those decisions in that way is I'm just using that hole as an example here, right? But like making those decisions in that way where you're like, I would rather be chipping from the fairway straight up a hill at
Yeah.
whatever tier I need to versus having to hit out sideways or, down the hill or whatever it is. Like those are the types of like, that's the way to play par threes. You almost want to play them the most conservative
Defensive.
in
Yeah.
many ways.
Like where do I
Yeah.
like if assuming for a moment I'm not going to hit the green, where would I want to play
Yeah.
it from? And that's
Right.
exactly like that's a hole you don't want to be long on, right? At all. And so you don't
No,
want to be
not at all.
you don't want to be left at all costs. You don't want to be long at all costs. So
Yeah.
you take a little less club than you think you
Right
need.
can be okay, but
Right.
you might just get unlucky with the lie. So it's like you don't even really want to chance that. But
But
if you're going to chance one side, it'd be the
for
right.
any hole you play, whether it's something you know really well or like something you're playing for the first time, I think part of the course management aspect is like assume for a minute I'm not gonna hit this shot perfectly. Where can I hit this from where I'm gonna salvage a par or a bogey, right? Like bogey is fine, par is good, birdie is great, double is not good, right? Like so if you just go in with that mindset of like I'm going to try to hit this green, but let's assume it's the 3 out of 10 times that, we use this example of like hitting a shot 7 out of 10 times on the range. There's still a 30% chance you're not going to hit that shot, right? So knowing where do I tend to miss 30, like that 30% of the time? If it's erratic, then you're kind of, I think you need to try to focus on having a singular miss or like narrowing the span of your misses, the dispersion of your misses. But like for me, I know if I'm going to miss, it's going to be short right. So it's finding the situation where it's like, okay, if short right is dead on this hole, then I'm going to take more club. Right.
Exactly.
And I'm going to aim for that bunker. Right. Because chances are I'm probably not going to go in that bunker. And if I go into it, then I hit a great shot at least. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's different ways to play holes and I think like, obviously playing to a miss as opposed in playing to your miss is like really strong strategy. But I also like, sorry, go ahead. I was going to go on to the next topic. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the most important thing that I heard you say in that is talking about your dispersion. Like it's about where the ball is going to land with that club. And like, that's it. It's actually not about where the pin is or even where the, like, any of these other factors around the green. It's better to aim at a spot that you might miss the green and like a 50 for 50 chance of missing the green than it is to aim for the flag, like most of the time. And I think that's true off the tee as well. Like, I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make as they're trying to reduce their handicap down from like a mid handicap to a single digit handicap is they don't respect the penalty areas enough. They don't respect out of bounds. They don't respect water hazards enough. And they try and like hit the perfect shot into these areas where it's just really not worth it because you lose an entire shot. And in most
Yeah.
cases in golf, even if you hit a bad shot, you're advancing the ball and like you're getting closer. And like that's I think knowing your dispersion and knowing if you have a right miss or a left miss and then trying to eliminate one, I think that's the name of the game. And then as you're heading to par threes, knowing like what is the circle that you could draw on this hole where you have the best likelihood of hitting the green is like
Yeah.
all you need to do on a par three. Because if you can hit the green, even if you're 45 feet away, if you three putt from 45 feet away, you're statistically likely to three putt from 45 feet away anyway. Like you're just doing what like you are more or less capable of doing on a golf course. If you aim for a pin that's tucked next to a bunker, you're probably, unless you're even like really good tour pro guys, like they're not going to be doing that all the time either because it's not the smart play. Like other guys are going to play more conservative. You're going to lose strokes because you can't get up and down from that you know bunker next to a tucked pin. It's just not a statistically good decision. And I think that's where like most people need to get into strokes gained and that sort of methodology and think about golf and the golf swing and like the trajectory in a more three-dimensional way
Yeah.
versus just the ball starts here, ball goes there type of way.
I was gonna say also in the scenario like you painted with the with the short-sided bunker shot, don't try to land it in front of the pin. Like just get it to the middle of the green. Like first and foremost, just get it out of the bunker. Because if you try to like land it just perfectly, you're probably gonna still end up in the bunker.
Yeah, it's the same principle.
It's the same principle.
Where can you hit it? Yeah, exactly. And that's where, we talked about the last episode, one of my goals this year is reduce the number of holes where I hit more than one wedge
in a row. Yeah.
Within 100 yards, right?
Yeah.
And if you're in one of the reason I'm tracking that stat is that I'm making better decisions and I'm not trying to be too aggressive out of that short-sighted bunker situation.
Yeah.
Let the putt be the hero, as I've heard before.
What I've also found is like, and if you look at pros, even if you watch their shot tracers, very rarely are their shot tracers starting off like right on the pin, right? Like they're usually aiming somewhere else, and they're either using the wind as a factor or their shot shape as a factor to get them to their desired outcome. And frankly, a lot of times where they hit a shot that you see on a broadcast and it's like 6 inches from the hole. First of all, that's not every par 3 shot or every shot they've had. That's probably like the one shot out of 69 they shot that day, right? Where it was like that. And then second, that was probably the 1% outcome that, maybe for them, it's not a 1% outcome, but for us, it's like a 1% outcome of that, of that materializing, right? For them, and maybe it's like a 10% outcome, but like for us, it's a 1% outcome. And so finding out where the like 70% outcome is or like the 80% outcome is like a really important thing to factor in when you're aiming for any green, whether it's on a par 3 or otherwise. And I do find that if I am trusting my shot shape and I'm trusting my miss, even if I'm aimed towards a hazard, I mean, water is like, it's really tough mentally to aim towards water, but certainly for a bunker, you can just swing a lot freer because that if you miss, it's not that big of a deal. It's actually going to end up in a pretty good spot versus like if you're trying to take dead aim at the pin, you feel like you need to like force this perfectly straight frozen rope shot, and you're likely that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a lot to this topic, and we'll talk a lot about more. But one other thing I wanted to sort of talk about as well was like trying to eliminate. I talked a little bit about like trying to eliminate the bad shots and like trying to find ways of like determining like, well, where do bad shots or terrible shots like come from? And I texted you a little bit about this, and I was thinking about it as I was reflecting on my round, and I texted you and I said, hey, like I have this like philosophy around, where bad shots in golf come from, and at least at the mid handicap level. And I think there's a this is a totally open for debate topic, so I don't pretend to know. But I basically thought it was like there are 3 things that you can at least use as like a process of elimination to maybe reduce the likelihood of a bad shot, right? So like I thought bad shots are a result of either like bad. So like instead of just saying like a bad swing, like it could be something like a bad mental state, right? So like you have like an angry shot or something like that. You could have bad setup, right? So you can not choose the right club, you can like not be aiming the right way, poor weight distribution, all those things. All those things we credit to be like a bad swing could actually just be bad setup. So stuff that happens even before you take the club back in your swing. And then the third would be like bad positioning. So what we just talked about, where like you don't really understand your miss, you hit a shot, it was very likely you were going to hit it there, and now you're really out of play, right? And you got to like scramble to get back, and scramble is probably being friendly. Like I was at like on 15, I hit a really bad shot. It was a shot that I probably hit 1 out of 10 times, but it put me in that like fescue stuff on to the right, in between 15 and 14. And so I just had to like chip out of there, and I wasn't going to chip on the green because that would have put me in a worse spot. So I had to chip out to that fairway in front of the green, like you mentioned. And then it took me, I putted it up. I thought it was going to break more. So I was still left with like 7 feet. I missed the 7-footer for bogey. So like, that's how that double bogey ended up happening. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it could have been a triple or a quad if I tried to go for the green. So anyways, but bad positioning off of the tee shot is what led me to the double on that. So the bad mental one is an easy one to tackle, right? Because a lot of times you hit a point in your round where you're frustrated. Either it's like a singular shot or a culmination of shots where, we've all been there, where like you hit, to use your example of like the double wedge shot or the double chip, right? So you hit a wedge, you hit a chip shot, doesn't go where you want it to go. You got to hit another chip shot. How many times are you going back to your bag and assessing the lie and determining if this is like, should you still be using the same wedge, or you just like take the club that you have in your hand?
Yeah, you still,
right?
Yeah, you just keep the same one. Yeah.
Yeah. The effort shot, right? Or like the vanity shot, where it's like, oh, I remember one time, or like on the last hole, I hit my 6-iron 200. So the next time I have a 200-yard shot, I'm going to take my 6-iron out again. And it's like, well, are the conditions the same? Like, are you hitting out of the rough? Or are you hitting out of the fairway? Or are you downwind? Are you like, like, there's so many other factors that play into that shot that you have to like assess it every single time. So being in a bad mental state, I think, really can result in a bad shot. And it's something that's easy to fix, which is like, just try to clear your head. We talk about this like with a pre-shot routine, with a pre-shot ritual, if you want to say, and trying to like just address every single shot as a singular shot. Do you want me to keep going into the other two, or you want to just touch on the bad mental space one first?
Well, I think that's pretty straightforward, right? Like that is purely the mental bucket of our 5 pillars. It's I mean, you said it's, at one point I think you said something like it's easy, but it might be the hardest part for some people to address in their golf game, and it might be the number one reason that they are hitting bad shots. Because I know for a while, for me it was, because I could hit more shots than I would allow myself to later in the round, because I would get upset early in the round, and I just had to let go of it, right? I think it's a hard balance, because you do have to eliminate the bad shots, but you have to let go of the bad shots. Like you have to figure out what's causing them, and like the mental state just creates knock-on effects. It creates stress, it creates tension. It never gets better.
What helped you sort of get over that mental hurdle? Like I heard on a podcast one time, Grant Horvath from Good, or previously from Good. Mm-hmm. He would say what he feels like he's not resetting, he would actually say out loud, "Oh, I really like this." Like he would walk through his setup. He'd be like, "This is a 6-iron. It's like a, downwind." Like he would say it all out loud so he could hear it. And then he would affirm with himself, "I like this shot. I like this. I like this. I'm going to this is going to be good." You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one. There are a lot of different tools that you can use, right? This is why there's an entire, field of cognitive behavioral therapy in psychology. I think it's, if you're there are so many different things, and they can be layers deep that are causing your reactions to bad shots, and they could have nothing to do with golf. And I think it can, to address it, can get really deep. For me, I think it was more, I played golf in high school. I wanted to play golf competitively. Golf was a performance sport for me, and I wanted to do well. And after, college, first years of work where I wasn't playing a lot of golf and getting back into it, later on, after more or less not thinking about it competitively for over 10 years, the first couple times I went out, I was getting frustrated with myself. I was getting angry in the course, playing with total strangers. And I just realized that the way that I was thinking about the game was not incongruent with what the game was actually for me anymore. And I just had to rethink, what is golf to me? Like, do I even want to play it? Is this fun for me? Or was this just a thing that I was like relatively good at, and my family thought it was cool that I was into it because it was always a family sport? I really had to go through that process to understand that. For other people, it might be that, something on the golf course just relates to something else in their life that's totally unrelated to sports or performance, and it could just be that there are these triggering chains of events in their mind that is making it hard for them to get over. And it could be angry, it could be performance anxiety, it could be a number of things, right? And I think it's a really personal journey. I do think that there are some very simple tools out there that people could probably try, right? I think something like a positive affirmation, like you said, is an interesting one. I think just trying meditating for a while is another one, because it allows you to, I think the big thing, if you do a good meditation course, it just helps you think about recognizing your thoughts and
Yeah,
not
breathing.
always taking action on them. I think breathing is definitely related. I think like that's obviously a part of meditation in most cases, but it could just be breathing in general. It could be that, a person just doesn't take deep breaths well, it doesn't handle stress well in the moment, and just breathing might be the key. I think there are a lot of things
Yeah.
like that. It could be as easy as just saying, like, when you're mad, telling yourself that you're not mad and that you enjoy being out on the course and that you're,
Yeah.
you're having fun, right? Like it could be these simple things. And I think the big thing is that people get so caught up in it that
Yeah.
they forget to try different things, and they just see this pattern or experience this cycle, and cycles are hard to break, right?
Yeah.
So it's
I,
like
I,
where
I do think,
it can be simple, but it just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
yeah, no, and I do think it's personal, but I also do think I think most golfers fall in the same trap that you and I fall into, and almost everyone I've ever played with falls into, which is they under credit their good shots and they over credit their bad shots. Like,
Yeah.
they get really upset about hitting a bad shot when if you're a 5 or a 15, doesn't really matter. You're going to hit bad shots in a round. That's why you have strokes to play with.
It's always relative, right?
Yeah.
It's always relative to what
And
your expectation of what a good shot is going to
Yeah.
change the better you
And
become.
and then I'm guilty of this as well. I'll hit a drive. It'll be a great drive. It'll be in the middle of the fairway, 270, and everyone around me will be like, "Oh, great ball," and I'll be like, "Oh, I pulled that a little." Like, why do we do that? Like, it's so silly. Like, oh yeah, I just pulled out a little one, but I worked out. Like, no, like, celebrate the fact that you just pumped it. It's in the fairway, or even maybe just the first cut of the rough. It's like not that it's a good outcome, right? Like,
Yeah.
it could have been so much worse, and the chances are that you're not going to hit it exactly the way you want to every single time. So be nicer to yourself. Like, I think we undercredit our good shots, we overcredit our bad shots. And I think if you were to also just be more hyped on your good shots, it's not actually, hyped is a bad word, because I don't want you to get too high or too low, but to say to yourself, no, that was a good shot. I think you can maybe, if you're finding if you're finding yourself at a point in the round where you're really struggling, like on this round, I had 3 doubles, 3 holes straight, double. I found like I needed to go back to a feeling I had, or a mental feeling I had, rather, not a swing feeling, but a mental thought I had on the following hole to reset and be like, you know what, it's okay. And it was, just to go back to my round for a second, I doubled 13, 14, 15, which 13 is very scoreable hole, but I put one out of play, so that was tough. 14 is a tough one, but I actually didn't like, it wasn't that bad. I just missed a putt and I missed a chip, which ultimately ended up being a double. And then 15 I already talked about. 16, I hit a terrible tee shot, but it worked out. It was just in the left rough, but it like went 10 feet off the ground. And then I hit a 4-iron that rolled up on the green, and I 2-putted. And I came out with par on the 1 handicap, right? And it wasn't anything I did. Like, my swing was still terrible. Like, it wasn't anything I had done differently with my swing, but I just went back to this feeling of like, just know where you can miss. So with the 4-iron shot, I was just aimed to the left because I knew if I my tendency with my 4-iron is to miss right, and there's space on the right there. And I ended up hitting, like, it made decent contact. It just sort of continued to roll, and it ended up working out. And I just 2-putted. And I think, like, trying to reset and then walking off of 16 being like, wow, I just parred the 1 handicap after really struggling. Like, that could have been a train wreck of a hole, just given how hard I know that hole is. And then I continued to birdie 17, and I bogeyed 18 because I put one in the bunker. But, like, still in a spot where I'm like, through those 3 holes, 1 over is like not a bad place to be at all to head into the back 9. So I think, like, trying to find that reset is really helpful. But, like, the other thing I find too, in terms of like doing that reset, is the setup. And this is where you and I maybe differed a little bit in opinion, but, like, I think I really go back to my setup every time I feel like I'm struggling. And I try to avoid, I don't want to conflate, like, the setup with swing thoughts. The setup is everything that happens before you take the club back, right? So I'm thinking about club selection. I'm thinking about start, like, line trajectory, shot shape. So, like, where am I aiming and where do I want the ball to end up? I'm thinking about ball position to accommodate that, right? I'm thinking about weight distribution, considering the club I have in my hand. And I'm thinking about my stance and my overall posture. All of these things happen before I take the club back. And it may
You think
seem like
about
a
all
lot.
of those you think about every single one of those before every shot?
No, I mean, that's why I
Okay.
don't hit that's why I don't hit great. That's why I don't hit great shots. We
No,
already
I
established
actually
that.
was saying, I was like, that's too many things to think about, I think,
No.
for,
Well, okay.
like, consciously.
So this is like what the process. This is what the right process is for me, which is,
Okay.
as I walk up to a ball or drive up to a ball, I assess the lie, right? And then I look at the ball. I take a closer look at the lie. Okay, from that position, and I do that while I take my rangefinder out and I look at my target. And then I think about, as I'm looking at my target, I'm also looking at, okay, where's the bunker? Where's, like,
Uh-huh.
the front of the green? Where's the back of the green? Like, how am I thinking about where I want to land this shot? So I'm already thinking about, like, start line trajectory and club selection as I'm thinking about, because I've taken a mental note of the lie. I've assessed the yardage. I've assessed the hazards. So all of that, then I go back to my bag and make my club selection. I feel affirmed in my club selection. So those, like, first couple things I think about even before I grab the club, right? And then as I address the ball, I think about ball position and I think about trajectory, right? And then as I'm standing over the ball, so once I'm set up in my over the ball, I'm thinking about posture, I'm thinking about weight distribution, and I'm thinking about shot shape. Sort of like imagining the shot shape I want.
Yeah.
And so it's really, like, it sounded like a lot, but a lot of it happens in the 2 minutes leading up to a shot, from when I, like, approach the ball to when I actually stand over the ball.
Yeah. Okay. It does sound like a lot. So, like, to me, half of that is feel, right? Like, to me, half of that is putting in the reps on the course.
But
Like,
what is feel?
the weight.
But feel is ingraining all of those things enough times to know what it feels like, so you don't have to do it every time. You can't just walk onto a course and expect to have feel. Like, I think that's tough to ask, like, mid-handicap golfers to do.
Maybe, I suppose. I don't know. I guess, like, it depends on the situation. For me, I know, like, I'll look at things after the fact, in terms of, like, maybe I'll adjust ball position because something happened on the ball flight on the last one. But, like, things like weight distribution and that type of thing, unless I'm explicitly working on it in my swing, like I don't think about that. I think about, I think I like the first part of what you said in terms of like, you got to look at the lie, you got to look at all that to help you pick the right club. To me, that's more of the strategy bucket than the setup, which is a little more part of the swing piece. But I think the idea of thinking through weight distribution and ball position and things like that, like if you're thinking about that and you're thinking about the trajectory of the ball during your setup, and like if you can't set up to the ball and hit and feel whether you're in the right setup for that shot or not, and then make adjustments to make sure that you are in the right position. I don't know, that seems like if you're doing that before every single shot, that's probably a lot, and you're probably thinking about too many different things, right? Like you mentioned swing thoughts a moment ago. That to me sounds like three different swing thoughts aside from your swing thought.
Well, I have
if
no.
that makes any
Well,
sense.
I rarely have. My only swing thought, and and again, I differentiated these by saying all of this happens before I take the club back, right? So my only thought when I take the club back is what I've been working on the range, which is to try to keep more of a bowed wrist and have. I'm imagining. For me, this is helpful, but I just imagine the face of the club is pointing to the sky, and that's kind of that's all I'm thinking about. And as long as I get in my hand in that position, I'm just swinging through the ball and I'm not really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So all of this stuff is like happening before. Now, arguably, I could still be thinking about too much. When I talk about stuff like ball position and weight distribution, it's not about like, I'm not taking out a ruler and I'm not like thinking about, is this 60-40 or it's more 65-35. I'm feeling like, am I feeling good about where I'm standing over this ball? Okay. Or does this not feel comfortable for me? I guess is what I'm trying to think about. Am I like two in my toes? Am I two in my heels? Like, am I thinking about, and again, I've thought about a lot of this before I even step up to the ball, but like if I'm on a downhill or an uphill, like, am I feeling athletic enough to make this swing? Or is this going to feel like some janky, like, 3/4 swing where I'm just sort of like hacking at the ball? Cause that's never going to work out for me. Right.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe I'm trying to be more discreet about the thoughts I have as opposed to just saying and feel athletic over the ball. But that's ultimately what I am trying to do is just feel like when I'm standing over the ball, I'm feeling like I'm on the balls on my feet, ready to take a jump shot, like, ready to sort of just pounce on this thing. Right. Like that's the feeling I want to have before I take the club back. But the way I sort of describe it or like put discrete thought around it is to say it probably has to do with like where I think the ball sits in my stance relative to where I think I can hit the ball, and then where my weight is in my feet, so I'm feeling athletic enough to like make a full swing in a very concerted effort and not like something where I'm feeling it's being very, very forced, I suppose is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think you maybe what you just articulated all the things that you want to consider before you hit a shot in a way that like eventually you got around to saying, do I feel good hitting this shot? And do I want to be athletic? And I don't know, the more I play and literally the more I watch Scotty Scheffler play and listen to what he thinks about, the more I just think about being athletic. And it's like, are you comfortable or are you not comfortable? Steph Curry doesn't think about all the different aspects of his setup and his, where his feet are necessarily and like the angle of his, elbow and all that before he pulls up and hits any jumper. It's automatic. It's a feel. And I think if you're trying to hit a shot and you're not feeling comfortable over the ball, like you probably just don't have that shot, I think is the feedback loop on that one.
My argument though with your comparison is that feel that Scotty has and Steph have is that they've ingrained that over hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of practice. But like a lot of the listeners here don't have that type of time. So I'm thinking about ways and where can we and look, you're right? Like if you don't feel comfortable over a shot, like you shouldn't be hitting that shot. Like I should say that, right? But I'm also thinking about a scenario where if we're just chalking it up to feel, I think how do you take that back and work on that, right? Like is your advice then to just develop better feel by what method do you develop? That's the question I have for you. By what method do you develop better feel?
Well, I think if your ultimate goal is to reduce the number of strokes you take in any given round, and you're saying where do bad shots come from, and one of the answers is hitting shots I'm not comfortable with, the answer is don't hit those shots on the golf course. And I think that to me should be the takeaway. Hit the shots that you're comfortable with. That includes chipping back out into the fairway when you don't want to. That includes a lot of other things that are not the fun part of golf, right? It's way more fun to have some crazy side hill lie and try and, swoop it back into, a tucked pin or whatever. But like, I think to me, if it goes back, you always have to think about what your ultimate goal is. If your goal is to not hit bad shots and you're hitting shots that aren't good when you're not comfortable over the ball, like choose a shot to hit instead that you're comfortable with. That to me is kind of the big thing. And that's where like my thing with this conversation is around where do bad shots come from? To me, I don't know. In golf, you're not going to eliminate bad shots. You're going to have bad shots. I think it's about figuring out what the type of bad shot, like what the pattern of bad shots is in your game and eliminating that. Right? Like that's
So
to me
so
is
said
why
differently, it's not about diagnosing. It's about accepting the bad shots and knowing how to play with bad shots in your game.
yeah, and knowing your limits because like you said a moment ago, like we are always going to have bad shots and we're always going to have good shots. You are hitting you went out and you had a round where you didn't have any shots that you were particularly proud of. But I tell you, there's a version of Nick 10 years ago that would have been really proud of a bunch of those shots, right? And I think it's always going to be relative. And I think like what is a bad shot? I'm at a point in my game now where if I'm 120 yards out and I miss the green or even don't even hit the part of the green that I want to, I could consider that a bad shot. Like you watch the pros; these guys hit the green, the ball's short and left 35 feet and but it's a relatively easy putt even, and they're just mad at themselves. They're kicking themselves because they're far away. Like the idea of a bad shot will always exist. It's just, what are the bad shots that are actually causing me strokes? And then address that problem. And it could be the mental thing, right? Like all of these are true. Like I'm not disagreeing with any of these things being issues. For me, ball position is actually one of the things that causes me to hit shots offline, especially when I'm not playing very often. And I think that's why I'm seeing it a lot more, because I'm not playing as often. Ball position gets out of line and therefore my shots go offline. And then I'm like out of position in ways that I never even dreamed of because it wasn't built into my dispersion model, so to speak, right? And so I think like trying to eliminate bad shots entirely and saying where do bad shots come from, it's too big of a problem, I think, is really what I'm saying about this.
No, that's fair.
And
Shoot,
I don't
ball
think it's not
position-
worth thinking about. I just don't think, I think you need to get more specific about where it impacts your game and why you care. Because it could be, if you are really trying to shoot your lowest scores, then you need to get really precise, but you need to look at some data probably to really understand if it's true or not, If you don't care that much about your score and you're just out there trying to have a good time and you're hitting bad shots and like, maybe it's that you're not caring enough. It could be that sort of thing. Like you're spacing out. Like you can't go out and, chug a bunch of beers and shoot your lowest score necessarily either. Right? Like you got to make some choices.
It's happened. I'm
not saying it hasn't happened. Maybe that's why you keep doing it, because it worked
finding
before.
the balance. They've actually done studies on like blood alcohol level in terms of golf score, and there is a positive connection with like a certain level of blood alcohol that just frees you up and allows you to play a lot looser than if you have no alcohol in your blood. And then as soon as it goes over a certain point, I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's on YouTube, it starts to go sideways for you. But it's finding that balance of like caring enough but not caring at the same time, right? That's tricky. And I think we're kind of like finding the balance of all of this and like, trying to eliminate bad shots, but also understand, because nobody wants to hit. When people hit bad shots, they want to know why it happened, right? And like, even if you can accept it, I think you're going to want to say, all right, well, I can accept it, but I don't want my next shot to be a bad shot. So how can I diagnose the shot that I hit? Was it, oh, I was aimed that way? Oh, I didn't give myself a fighting chance because I'm hitting out of, pine straw, right? Like,
Well, and I think, your third item actually, or your third reason of what hitting bad shots, you say bad positioning, which goes into strategy and course management. I think the biggest thing is that people don't know enough about strategy and course management and don't know how to stay disciplined to that strategy and course management. And I would argue that is probably one of the bigger elements that leads to bad shots, because people don't actually understand the principles of scoring in golf because they've never dove into strokes gained. They haven't internalized it. They don't really know the strengths and weaknesses in their game. It's a lot of guesswork. And that guesswork, like, what you'd think now might be different in 6 months, especially if you haven't been playing all that much and you're playing different courses all the time, right? I think one of the big things is like you have to eliminate the variables to understand your own game, and you have to be really specific about what your own individual goal is in order to diagnose where you should put that. And to me, like that's why we came up with the 5 pillars, is because it allows you to choose one and run it to the end, because the idea that you can't improve in any of the 5 is not true. It's about figuring out how far you can take one of them and lower your score. A lot of people could lower their scores not worrying about anything we just talked about and just getting in better shape and doing golf specific workouts, right? A lot of people could lower their scores just by
having a better mental
games,
state,
as I mentioned it, or a better mental state, right? And a lot of people, where I got to with my game is I tried to do all those other things except for take lessons, and then it just came down to the point where, man, you got to practice more and you got to practice the right things. And I didn't know the right things. I had to find a professional to point out the right things in my swing. And I think that to me is it in terms of like it, I still couldn't say that I have one reason that I take bad swings or have bad shots. It's going to be a number of different reasons. And I continue to work on it, but it's why I'm focused on the physical piece for myself, because that's the one thing that I know to be something that will move the needle for me today.
So to summarize our episode, I feel like it's almost been about understanding that bad shots are going to happen and appreciating those bad shots and trying to, you're never going to eliminate them, but work to a situation where you can accept and manage and play to them in a way where you're only making bogey if the bad shot occurs, as opposed to making double or triple. And I think that's going to obviously lower a bunch of scores, including my own. So I have a round coming up next weekend, like as we mentioned. I might try to play. Kids are on spring break this week, but I might try to play during the week as well. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, no, this is some good stuff for me to take out onto the course. Just like maybe not try to diagnose every bad shot. Maybe just say, oh, well, that was weird, and then just move on to the next one. Or just like
I literally do that.
Yeah,
I literally do that. I'm like, oh, that was weird. That was a bad shot. Okay, well, next one.
But I do also want to work a lot about the pre-shot, like the pre-shot, ritual. We talk about positive affirmation. We talk about feeling comfortable over the ball, feeling athletic over the ball, where you can make a comfortable swing and you're not feeling uncomfortable over a shot. If you're feeling uncomfortable over a shot, either because of the wind or because of your start line or the club that you have in your hand, just change that. Like be comfortable. Just because it's a par 3 and it's 200 yards, first ask yourself, why are you playing from those tees? But second should be, hey, maybe I could just hit this 170 and feel pretty, and like I can land it in this area and then just pitch up and, get up and down for par. And maybe that's the way you play that hole. I will tell you, there are certain scenarios where I don't feel like I have my game, where I know I just say, like, even on a par 3, I'll be like, I don't feel like if I try to hit a 4-iron 210 yards on this hole, I'm just not going to really, there's a lot of bad stuff that could happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a 7-iron and leave myself 30 to 40 yards into the green right? And just sort of like play a pitch shot or maybe even putt it if it's puttable, right? And play the hole that way. And frankly, every single one who's listening to this podcast on a par, unless you're a pro, on a 210-yard par 3, take bogey every single time. Like, I'm sorry, you should be
every
taking
single
bogey
time.
Take bogey
don't
every
even
single
worry.
time. Yeah.
Don't even worry. If you get a 3, you gain some strokes back for sure.
And everyone who's listening to this is probably, if you bogey, if you par, your strokes gained on a 210-yard par 3 for sure.
Look, tour average on par 3s is over 3. If tour pros on average cannot make par on par 3s,
why should you?
We shouldn't be worried about it as amateurs. Quite frankly, yeah.
Speaking of pros, we obviously talked about the Masters, so let's wrap up this episode with a few Master predictions. Before we jumped on the mics here, Ryan, I went and looked at who Vegas has, who's the Masters favorite Vegas has, and maybe it's surprising, maybe it's not, but it's Scotty by a pretty large margin. People not realize he just had his second kid and hasn't played since the Players. I don't know. That's an odd one to me.
Know that, honestly.
Well, maybe Vegas doesn't know either.
It explains why he's. I haven't heard a lot of.
I mean, these last two tournaments have been in his backyard. I mean, he could have been home for bedtime, playing in Houston and playing in Dallas. So, I mean, he clearly is preoccupied.
I don't know if that's how his tournament week schedules work, though.
But yeah, look, I mean, obviously Scotty does really well at Augusta. He's won multiple times. He's a clear and obvious favorite. Bryson, number 2. Tied with odds with Rory at plus 1,000. Scotty was plus 500. Bryson and Rory at plus 1,000. John Rahm a plus 1,200. Quite surprising because I don't think Live Tour players do that well at the Masters. So interesting to see Bryson and Johnny up there. And then Ludwig Åberg plus 1,400 along with Xander. 2 guys who I really struggle to put money on because I just don't think they close out well. I think they're extremely talented golfers. I think we saw it obviously at the Players with Åberg. We've seen it a couple of times. I think it was at the Genesis this year with Xander. It's tough to close out a golf tournament for anybody. It's nothing against that. I think it's just a tough thing to do.
I'll remind you that Xander did win 2 majors year before last, so he can do it, right?
Okay, so maybe we can go back in a time machine and we can.
It's been a while. I think the big thing with him though is that he had like surgery, had like a weird rib injury or something like that. Like a core injury for a golfer is hard to come back from. And he just was nowhere to be seen. So I'll forgive you for forgetting about his majors because he basically disappeared after that.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, Ludwig, I like him. I think he'll break through at some point.
He'll be in the mix on Sunday.
He almost won the Masters in his first appearance, right?
I almost think he would win. If he was in the second or third to last group, shoots a 3 or 4 under on Sunday, and the leaders fall off. I think that's how he wins. I don't think he's in the last. I don't think he's in the last group holding a lead. I don't.
I'm looking right now. He's in second at the Valero Texas Open right now too. So
but it's not the Masters. I'll tell you who
the Masters.
I'll tell you who my sleeper. I'll tell you who my sleeper picks are. Matt Fitzpatrick at plus 2,500 and Justin Rose at plus 2,800 feel like pretty.
How
good
is Matt Fitzpatrick that far down? He's been playing so good lately.
I know. And Justin Rose always plays well at the Masters, and he's on another
Justin
level
Rose
right now. I mean, people forget
Justin
he was
Rose
number 1 in the world for a long time.
I love these guys who were like not that interesting at the height of their powers, and then they just get this second chapter. Like the Justin Rose's "Just Happy to Be Here" chapter is like one of my favorite things. I think it actually is almost a
the Keegan Bradley too
for. Less so. I don't have as much interest in Keegan in the same way.
But I put him in the same camp of like no one really cared when he was 27, but like now that he's Ryder Cup champion and he won a tournament, was it last year or 2 years ago? He won. I can't remember which one he won, but he won a tournament then.
I don't know this whole Ryder Cup thing with him. I'm like, guys, he's a good golfer, but he's not that guy that we should like. Justin Rose is former world number 1. Like was really good for extended period of time. I just had no interest in him as like I don't know, who's too busy being focused and winning and not being like an interesting person. But to me, I don't know, maybe it's that like Tiger has faded. Like Tiger had his comeback in 2019 and then never really came back in the way that like we hoped. And I feel like Justin Rose is doing the thing that we hoped Tiger would do, where he's got this resurgence. He's in the mix. He's happy to be here. He's a nice mentor for all the younger tour guys. I really like seeing that from these guys. And Justin Rose is probably my favorite example of it.
Let's not talk about Tiger right now. I feel like that's a whole other podcast.
We're not.
Trouble with the driver is all we'll say, right?
We're not.
Right. Okay, so the other ones I always like Robbie McIntyre. I know he's leading today in the Valero. I've always liked his game. He's someone who could benefit from a little mental coaching, frankly. I think he's got all the talent in the world, but I've seen him get really upset with himself. Akshaya Bhatia is up there as well. Minwoo Lee. These are all really interesting names. Chris Gotterup, I really like. And then the last one I'll say before I'll turn it to your picks, not on the top 50 list, but I love watching this kid play. I think he's going to be really great. I think he could break up this season. It might be next, but Michael Thorbjornsen, I know he had like a really nice finish to the Players, and I think he finished pretty well at the where was it?
He's been playing some good golf the last year, so for sure.
He hits it far. He's got really good. I think he's got a pretty good short game. I think he's a little trouble with the putter sometimes, but he could be a dark horse at Augusta.
Yeah.
Is he even invited? Actually, I don't even know if he's invited on that.
I'm sure he is. I think he was he was in the FedEx Cup and stuff last year, I believe. So I would be shocked if he wasn't. So who's your pick to win non-Scotty division?
Non-Scotty division, meaning not in the top 5 of Vegas odds, or what are we saying?
No, like literally anybody but Scotty Scheffler.
I got to go with Fitzy. I don't know. I think he's playing really well right now.
I like that pick. That's good.
I think I have him in my pool. I think I have him in my pool as well. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Who is not going to win? It's on that list that you just said.
Bryson.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't any Bryson hate, but I don't know. I don't see it. Actually, you know what? Let me change the answer. I don't think Rory's going to go back to back.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think both of those are fair. Bryson's a little bit of a not that you have to be all feels, but he's a little too mechanical for Augusta, I feel like.
I mean, he's got great short game. I mean, he proved that at the US Open. I mean, like Pinehurst requires you to have finesse. He's a great golfer. I don't know. I just feel, I don't know. It's just more of a feeling than anything else.
Yep.
I mean, look, the not going to win question is a lot. Like you could pick anybody from this list and you'd be right for everybody except for one, right? So who do you have to win?
Good question. Who do I have to win? I think, man, Matt Fitzpatrick was probably my answer. Not that I necessarily want him to win. Like maybe kind of like what I was talking about a moment ago with Justin Rose. Like Justin Rose's prime, just not that interesting to me. Matt Fitzpatrick, not that interesting to me. Like even as a like a 2-time major winner, but he's been playing so well. It's hard to quibble with that. So, you know who I think can do it? Here, I'll give you my pick that I'll give you 2 picks that I think people aren't talking about as majors winners, but if they won, would not be necessarily they would not be surprises. Adam Scott and Brooks Koepka. I think people are sleeping on Brooks. I think he's back. I think he's built for majors. Like I think he could win it. I'm just looking right now. He's number 3 on the PGA Tour in strokes gained approach. I think if any of these guys, I to me, like strokes gained approach by far the most
who's number 1 and 2
metric. Number 1 is Colin.
Yeah, it makes sense.
1.00 or 1.066 strokes gained per round. It's incredible. Like him. Number 2, Austin Smotherman. I
Interesting.
don't even really know who he is.
So there's maybe
to be
a
honest
kink,
with
maybe
you.
there's a kink in your theory.
No, I mean it just means that there are other parts of their game.
Yeah.
So I think if you're top of the game and strokes gained approach though, you make a few putts, like you're in the mix. You know,
I mean, Colin's another one that he's been in contention before. I was gonna say
it's the putting, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the putting that's going to hold him back.
I mean,
Matt
he won.
Fitzpatrick though, number 7, 0.81 strokes per round right now. Like Justin Rose, to your point, 0.75. Rory is so good though, man. Rory is number 10 on the list. 14 events, 0.74 strokes gained per round.
Putting can let him
Like
down.
so,
though.
he's going to be there. I think to him, it's probably going to be like he's probably going to do the thing he does where he doesn't have a good round on Thursday, but like he'll have a good excuse because he'll have had his Champions dinner and some real nice bottles of wine from Augusta National's vaunted cellar. So, but
I feel like that's going to be. I feel like that's going to be Scotty. I actually think what you just said is going to be Scotty. I think Scotty's going to shoot. He's going to shoot like even or 1 under on the first day, and then he's going to blow the field away on days 2, 3, and 4, and he's going to be in contention, but he's going to miss out by those couple strokes he gave up on Thursday. That's sort of my thinking.
Could be. But
okay, here's the last.
If I have to
here's
pick
the last
one
question.
guy though. Oh yeah, if I have to pick one guy though, I think I'm going to Adam Scott.
Okay.
I just have a feeling.
All right, so I know you wanted to pick Fitzy because I wanted to. This is sort of leading into this question I've been dying to get out here for the last 5 minutes. I want to hear who do you think is going to be in the final grouping on Sunday, assuming one is Matt Fitzpatrick, since we both think he's probably going to be around the top, and one of those players has to be a dark horse, not in like the top 10 that I rattled off.
You're saying okay, so like let's just say Matt Fitzpatrick's in the final pairing.
Yes.
Who's
who are the other
person
two? Who's the other two? Is it? It's groups of 3, right? In the end,
it's 2. They do 3 the first couple days before the cut, and then they go down to 2.
Okay, sorry. So last 2. Sorry, I meant the last 2 pairings then. So the last 2 groupings.
Last 2 groupings. So who we think are basically going to be the top 4?
Yeah, going into Sunday, and one is Matt Fitzpatrick, and one has to be a dark horse. So it sounds like Adam Scott.
I actually don't think Adam Scott will win. I think he'll like come from a couple groups behind. Like
Okay.
I feel like that's one of those like chaotic back 9. Somebody's going to make a couple putts and he's going to make a couple shots. Like I think that's an Adam Scott special there. So maybe second to final group. I think it'll be Matt Fitzpatrick. I think Scotty will be in there.
Yep, I agree.
And then who else? I'll pick Ludwig.
Okay.
I think he's in there. And then I don't know. I guess maybe I'll just say Adam Scott is in the second to last group.
Okay.
I don't think he'll go into the.
Horse.
I don't think he's going to go into the round with the lead. But I think if Adam Scott drops a couple putts, plus he's won a major before. Like I think he can. It would be a good story.
I like your motif with Adam Scott. I was going to go with someone who is a fan of golf, would know the name, but not someone who anyone sort of has on their on their checkerboard. So I would say Matt Fitzpatrick, as we mentioned, Scotty Scheffler. I agree with you. I think for another sort of like maybe obvious one, I'm going to go Colin Morikawa, and then I'm going to go for the fourth sort of dark horse pick. There's a lot of names I like on this list. I'm going to go with Siwoo Kim. He's been playing some pretty good. He's been playing some decent golf lately. I'm interested to see how he does it. How he does at Augusta. I'm gonna go with Siwoo Kim. He's gonna be fourth. He's gonna be fourth on that leaderboard, but he'll be in the second to last grouping on Sunday.
That's interesting. I'm just looking at his stats right now. Number 5 in strokes gained approach. 139th in strokes gained putting.
Oof.
He's losing half a stroke per round on the greens. Might be tough at Augusta.
Listen, that's why he's plus 6,600. So
maybe he'll turn.
That's why he's called a dark horse.
Yeah.
There's always one guy every year at the Masters who's just like, is this the moment?
It's fine. I picked Adam Scott, who's very mid around the green and putting, so that's probably wrong.
He used to be one of the best putters in the world.
Yeah, that's just me hoping for
You know
a good
what?
story.
You know,
I think I'm just looking for this year's Justin Rose is all.
Yeah,
Choosing Adam Scott.
I'll go with another Aussie. I hope Day's in the top 10 going into Sunday. I've always loved his game. I really hope he can finish near the top 10. But
Yeah, Kisner's been playing pretty good too.
yeah,
I'm changing my pick. I'm going with Brooks Koepka. Koepka's back.
all right.
He's gonna make some putts. He's gonna be back. That's where I'm at. He's built for majors.
If that isn't a note to close the podcast on, I don't know what is, Ryan. So I think that probably concludes this episode, but we'll be back next week with maybe a post-Augusta round. And since we're both probably playing next weekend, we can talk about how we've maybe migrated some of these thoughts to the course, and hopefully we can shoot some better scores.
Let's do it. All right, man. We will talk soon.
Yeah. Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
Isn't that my line? I need to figure that out again.